And we're live. Hello, everybody. All right. We're almost on time this week. Hi, Delvis. How you doing? Hi, Invader. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, let me just grab the URL here and drop it into Facebook real quick. How's everybody doing tonight? Hello, Chris. Hi, David. Hey, Byron. How you doing? Brandon, nice to see you. All right, there we go. Benny is ready. Very good. All right, hey, you know, I actually have some topics. I have stuff to talk about. I have stuff to talk about in this live stream. So I'll give everybody a chance to, you know, come in and take their seats, and then we'll get started. Hello, Orderly Alley Viper. Nice to see you. And Josiah and Gray Fox. Hi, how you doing? Ben. Hey, Gray Fox is finally on time for a live stream. Well, about time, Gray Fox. We've all been waiting on you. New movie comes out in March 2020. Yeah, that's one thing that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the new movie. Some news about the new movie. So we'll cover that. Hi, John. Hey, Kevin. Well, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for showing up here. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys coming to the live stream. You guys make this enjoyable for me, so I'm glad to have you here. I'm doing well. We're right in the middle of a really busy work week, so you know I'm busy. I've been doing a lot, but I mean I'm tired, but I'm not bad. I'm okay. It's just like normal work tired kind of thing. Hey McDowell, how you doing? Yojo to McDowell. Oh yeah, new animated series, new figures and vehicles. I hadn't heard about a new animated series, but we ought to get some new toys at retail when the movie is released. Although, of course, I don't collect modern G.I. Joe, so what I should say is you should get more figures and vehicles once the movie is released. And the more I hear about it, the more optimistic I'm getting about the movie. You know, as there are always more ways to screw it up than there are to do it right. But I feel like some of the decisions that they seem to be making sound like good decisions. So, you know, I'm still cautiously optimistic about the upcoming Snake Eyes movie. Hello, Michael Bassett. Nice to see you. Yeah, we've got stuff to cover this time. Since we're a few minutes into it, I'll go ahead and jump in. Oh, what's this? Yeah, Great Fox. I do want my collection to, you know, have some bookends, you know, to have it be finite. I don't want to. I can't afford to have my collection cover truly everything. So yeah, I try to keep within the scope of the vintage era. There have been a couple occasions where I've gotten a few other things, but I stick with vintage. I tell you, the thing that made me decide to do that was the documentary about Air Devon. So that's what. That's what really prompted me to think about how to limit my collection to where it would still be big enough that I would enjoy, but it's not going to take over the whole house, if you know what I mean. Oh, Bender Kane is trying to collect his or complete his son Nick's collection. Passed away from leukemia. Sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss. That does sound like a nice way to kind of connect with that memory, though. So that's a kind of a cool idea. Um, Hey Brandon, I got to get back with you on the emails. I've been a little bit behind on getting to my emails, so sorry about that. But I'll get back with you, Brandon. I have seen the emails, but I just I've been a little bit behind. it's it's been a very busy week. Um, so okay, let's the topic I want to start with first, and I'd kind of like to do this more regularly on the live streams. Oh, Jeffrey, hello to Fort Sill, South Carolina from the United States. Um, I'd like to have a few minutes to talk about the most recent review, which this time was Airtight. So if anybody has some thoughts about Airtight, now is the time. By the way, Joe Motion Videos 82, Mr. Byron is also a really awesome guy. So I'm always happy to see Byron in here. So Airtight, it was a Patron's Choice review. Patrons voted on it. As Delvis said there, don't Google it unless you're prepared to be shocked. Yeah, so I gave the patrons a ton of options. Basically, everything that didn't win a poll this year got a second chance. So out of all of those, Airtight was the winner. Chris has Airtight in a shoebox. Well, I hope you poked little holes in the shoebox so we can breathe. Did you ever think of that, huh? Hey, David Lewis and Son. Hi, guys. Thanks for showing up. So, yeah, Airtight was, I think, an interesting choice. But it's one that I had kind of been looking forward to doing for a little while. Not so much because of the figure itself, but when I worked at the courthouse, when I had cases at our courthouse downtown, I would regularly have cases in front of one particular judge, and the bailiff for that judge found out about my YouTube channel, talking about it, and he mentioned that he really enjoyed this G.I. Joe action figure. He couldn't even remember the name of the figure. He just remembered it was yellow and it was green and it had a helmet, and he would use it as a pilot because he didn't have any idea what the figure actually was. Well, I thought he might have been talking about Airtight, so I went and dug into my extra figures. I pulled out an Airtight, and I gave Phil an Airtight. So that was a kind of a fun thing to share G.I. Joe with someone who's not like a hardcore fan, but still remembers it. Remembers enjoying it back then, and bring something. Bring some new information to the tables. He can learn something about it that he didn't know before. So I just really enjoyed that. So that was fun. So I did want to review Airtight. Is he tall and bald? No, he's tall, but he's got hair and a beard. Although I do think that all bailiffs should be tall and bald. There are some times when we might have a little less trouble in the courtroom if the bailiffs were, a little taller and a bit more imposing. But yeah, Airtight. I did it sometimes. Yeah. Night Court was one of my favorite shows back then. There was we had a friend in law school who was bald, and just a coincidence, I happened to be bailiffing a competition that he was competing in, and I mentioned to him that he looks a lot more like Bull from Night Court than I do, so frankly I think he should be the bailiff. But there are some figures that are not as easy to review because you know they don't have as many media appearances. Um, you know that they're not major characters. You know, when they did have appearances, their role was limited, and so you know you have to really kind of dig deep to find out what you're going to say about these figures. And Airtight, I really had to think about Airtight to figure out what I wanted to say about him. I had to think about like what's the essence of Airtight? What's important about this figure? And one thing that struck me as I was looking more into Eco Warriors is like, why isn't Airtight an Eco Warrior? It just seems to make sense to me that they would have him on that team. Oh, the movie The Rock. Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, the movie The Rock I haven't seen for quite a while, but I can see why you would think Airtight. Jan Eric from Montreal. Hello, Montreal from the United States. He uses his Airtight with Sky Striker. See, he kind of looks like a pilot, doesn't he? It's the helmet. Hello, Green Yeti. How you doing? So yeah, the non-removable helmet always has it on. It could easily be taken as a pilot's helmet, and that suit that he has could be easily taken as like a pilot's jumpsuit. Yeah, so Airtight. Thanks for everyone for watching the video. The video actually did pretty well. I always worry that, you know, people are not going to watch on videos. There, I know that it's a less popular figure, and you know, when I look at the kind of response that I get when I do something popular, then obviously it gets a lot more views. But really, people actually did watch the video, so thank you for actually watching the video. Airtight's head became part of a ball-necked copperhead conversion. Now that's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. It does have a little bit of a copperhead look with that helmet and mask. Hello, hi Green Yeti. What's up? A gunner in a tank. You know, that would that'd be a fairly good role too. Actually, when he started in issue, what it was, issue number 44, he was in the Mauler. Yeah, he was kind of riding shotgun in the Mauler tank with heavy metal. Green Yeti, you know, I'm glad you're here when you can be here, and if not, well, we will hopefully see you next time. I'm just grateful for everyone that does show up every week. It's really cool to talk to you guys. Just due to the schedule, I haven't been able to keep track of like comments, and I've had a hard time replying to emails and stuff. So this has been a nice way for me to, you know, keep up with you guys and actually talk with you guys and interact with you. Fat Cat is from Canada. Hello, Canada from the United States. All right, hang on one second. Hey, the dog's outside. Dog wants in. Time out. I'll be right back. You were supposed to let her in. Remember that? This is the second time she's back. They don't really listen. And we're back. All right. Now, who said I should be president? I'll do it. If I were drafted, I would accept the nomination. Yeah, I let the dogs in. Anyway, so thanks to everyone for actually tuning in for the Airtight video. The next review is actually already done. I just finished it. I uploaded it. It's scheduled, and I had to do it. I had to finish it early because I actually have a whole bunch of stuff to do before the end of the year, and the end of the year is getting awfully close. So it's making me a little nervous. How many, mostly small videos, but how many videos I still have to do before the end of the year. And one video that's not going to be small is the question and answer video. And I had worried that doing the live stream kind of made the question and answer video obsolete. But when I mentioned it, a few people did have a positive response, so I guess people still want to do the question and answer. So Q&A video will be the last video of the year, so that's going to be a big one. So that's another thing that I need to do before the end of the year. And then another thing I have to do before the end of the year is I need to think about the changes that I need to make for 2019. Every year I try to do a new intro. I try to tweak the format a little bit, and I need to think about what kind of changes I would want to make next year. I don't intend to make large changes. I mean, the channel is doing really well, and so if it's not broken, I don't want to fix it. But there might be just a tweak here and there that might improve things, make it a better experience. I got to think about that because, you know, the first video of 2019 is going to be coming up before we know it. Hey, Delvis, I already said I wasn't going to sing, but I tell you what, if you make too big of a deal out of it, I just might. Now look here. If everybody who complains about the singing gets a song, so be careful. So I'm not going to sing. I'm not. Besides the fact that I don't sing well, those videos are actually kind of a pain to put together. And so I always hope that I don't have a musical idea for a video because I know it's going to be a pain to shoot and edit. I could do a musical as long as somebody, you know, I'll just have to lip sync. So all of those things are coming up, and there is not very much time. And also, I don't know if anybody's, you know, heard about this, but there are holidays that come up, you know, kind of end of December, 1st of January kind of time period, and those things are going on. And I've got I've got holiday stuff that I need to do too. So I'm trying to get myself in the holiday spirit. You know, I'm trying to. So, yeah. Anyways, the point of that was the next review is done. It's ready. It's in the can. It is uploaded to YouTube. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But in fact, like, I've still got a lot of clutter around me, as I usually do, just leftover stuff from reviews that I haven't put away yet. You know, and if I were to turn the camera around, you would instantly know what the review is because, yeah, it's just everywhere. But hey, I will be debuting something new that I got recently tomorrow in a quick shot. So a quick shot coming up tomorrow, and it's something new. Something that I just acquired, and I think it's pretty neato. I think you'll like it. Steven asked if I've reviewed any Slaughters Marauders figures. I have not gotten to the figures yet, but I'd like to. I've done vehicles, but I haven't gotten to the figures yet. Michael Bassett asked if when I'll be doing another unboxing video. That's a good question. I'm going to be doing one very soon. I've got to do one for December, but I wanted to wait a little bit longer just to make sure that I've received everything that I'm going to receive this month. And then I'll do an unboxing video, and I'll do a proper unboxing video. I kind of came to the conclusion that opening things for the live stream, although that's fun, I enjoy doing it, maybe isn't the best way to do it. I think those deserve their own unboxing videos. So next one will be a proper unboxing video, and it should come pretty soon, just a little bit closer to the end of December. So good question, good question. That's actually something that I've been giving some thought to. Was Red Dog just a meaner Big Lob? That's a good question. I sort of, but I mean, but he talked less, and that was good. He didn't do that play-by-play thing, which was nice. If I had to choose between Red Dog and Big Lob, that's an easy choice. And the Red Dog figures, some parts of it are kind of interesting. Now, of course, you have to get past the colorful sport jersey. The same as with Bazooka. If you can tolerate it with Bazooka, I guess you wouldn't mind it with Red Dog. But yeah, that's hey, and two sport-themed characters in the same movie. Mercer's a pretty good figure. I look forward to looking at Mercer, both the first and the second versions of the figure, because I think version 2 was not a bad update. 1987 running out of ideas. 1987 there were issues in 1987. Mistakes were made. Do I have a scrap iron figure? I do have a scrap iron figure. Thank you. Bazooka is your wife's favorite character. Well, that's cool. It's nice that your wife has a favorite character. You know, my wife is married to a G.I. Joe toy reviewer, and I don't think she even has a favorite character, so that's nice. Cobra la 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 la. So we're not quite halfway through this video, and I have another topic. I have another topic to discuss. There is a little bit of new information about the upcoming G.I. Joe Snake Eyes solo movie coming up in 2020. So I wanted to get your thoughts about that. One piece of new information, and then another sort of non-story. The new information is that the new Snake Eyes movie will not have Ray Park reprise his role as Snake Eyes. And the reason for this, they said, yeah, no Ray Park. The reason they said they were doing this is because of Ray Park's age. I guess this is going to be kind of like a Snake Eyes origin story. So at some point we should get Snake Eyes without his mask. And so they need someone younger than Ray Park. But yeah, Gray Fox says keep Ray Park for the mask scenes. I would be fine with that. I have my problems with the two live-action G.I. Joe movies, but Ray Park wasn't one of those problems. That guy he seems right as Snake Eyes. And that's in a role where he doesn't talk, he doesn't have his face shown, so he has no agents of expression. He just has to communicate with body language and gesture. And I think he did a fine job. But Yeah, Steven didn't dig the last movies. Hope this one will be great. Those are my thoughts too. I liked Retaliation a lot more than Rise of Cobra, but Retaliation had its problems too. Retaliation was not a perfect movie. It was definitely an improvement though. But I'm going to choose to be optimistic about the Snake Eyes movie. I'm choosing to be optimistic. I don't want to be one of these, these negative fans that has to dump on everything, especially if it's like, 1% different from what I wanted. I'm not going to be that way. If they can just make a good movie, even if it's not necessarily a movie that directly appeals to me, but just a movie that will be good for a general audience, all thumbs up for me. So I'm crossing my fingers because a lot rides on this new movie. G.I. Joe needs another generation of fans, and in order to make that happen, we got to get G.I. Joe in front of the next generation in a way that they will enjoy. It's got to be something that they will enjoy. So I'm hoping that they can do that. I'm really, really hopeful. Yeah. Now, the other story, which is kind of a non-story, is about the John Cena fan theory. And that's another thing that I'm very cautious about. Fan theories can be dangerous things, right? Because fan theories can set up people's expectations, and then if it doesn't turn out to match the fan theory, then everybody whines and complains. Well, if the, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be that like that. But, there is a fan theory out there that deserves to be addressed. And that is that John Cena's character is connected in G.I. Joe in some way. Well, the filmmakers and the actors were asked about this, and essentially they neither confirmed nor denied that being true. Roguish Paladin doesn't like the Joe Transformers crossover. I'm with you. I am not a fan of the Joe Transformers crossover. It really is not my thing at all. I don't really think those universes mesh very well, personally. So I agree with you there. But on the other side, it's something that I know they're going to do. They're going to do it, whether we prefer it or not. Because Hasbro, I think, is still wanting to build this cinematic universe. So somewhere down the line, we are going to get G.I. Joe and Transformers mashed together. I think that's just inevitable at this point. So if they're going to do it, my hope is that they will at least do it well. Now some fan theories were that John Cena was going to be Duke, basically. John Cena is Duke in the Transformers movie. I don't think that's correct. I think he's more likely to be a character similar to I can't talk. A character similar to Joe Colton. Kind of like the first Joe. The Bumblebee movie apparently, I guess, is set in the 80s. So the timeline would make sense if the John Cena character is kind of a proto-Joe. Then that could lead to the creation of the G.I. Joe team. And I think that's not a bad idea. If you're going to build a cinematic universe, you can't do it all at once. You gotta ease into it. You gotta do it slowly. The reason you do it slowly is because it forces you to focus on each piece and give it the proper attention that it deserves, so that you can make each piece of your cinematic universe good before you try to mash them together. And one thing that, if they're going to do it, and if it's going to start with the Bumblebee movie, then doing it with like maybe just a little bit of hint of G.I. Joe, like this much, is a fine way to start. Give us a tiny little setup, and then build on that perhaps with the Snake Eyes movie. And if the Snake Eyes movie is an origin story, then I know Steve from G.I. Joeberg had the theory that, or had a desire, I guess I should say, for the G.I. Joe movie to be set in the 80s. Well, the Snake Eyes movie has the potential to be set in the 80s. For the regular G.I. Joe movie, for the whole team, they were talking about being more modern, being updated, and for that, I didn't think they were going to be setting it in the past, but they could set the Snake Eyes movie in the past and have that lead up to their new sleek and modern G.I. Joe movie. So, yeah, that's I think that's a possibility, and that might work. Setting it in the 80s, maybe a little too early. Just based on, like, if they're going to have the G.I. Joe movie as a fully modern movie happening today, then if you have Snake Eyes' origin story set in the 80s, then I think that still makes him too old. Too much time will have passed. So maybe you set it in the 90s, something like that. But oh, hey, I saw Comic Tropes. Hello, Comic Tropes. How you doing? If it doesn't have Chabang, we riot. You know, when are we finally going to get a live-action Chabang? When is it going to happen? Yeah, I'm choosing to be optimistic about it, and I'm not going to be a nitpicky fan. As someone who wants to see the next generation drawn to G.I. Joe, I have to give the filmmakers leeway to experiment and take risks. They've got to be allowed to take some risks. And if you take risks, sometimes those risks don't pay off. But you can't push the envelope if you don't try something. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna give them some leeway and see what they come up with, and hope that it's something that will draw the next generation of fans into G.I. Joe. I still think that's possible. People say that it's impossible. I disagree. When I see properties that are much older than G.I. Joe, and even like properties that in the past have sometimes been more violent than G.I. Joe, properties that have at least an element that's military focused, and those have done just fine and have drawn in a lot of young fans. And if those things can do it, then G.I. Joe can do it. It just needs the right story. It just needs since we're talking movies now, then it needs the right movie. But it's got to be something that will appeal to kids today, or not necessarily appeal to kids. Not necessarily appeal to kids, but it's got to be something that will appeal to everyone. This is the genius of Marvel's cinematic universe, is that, most of these movies and the TV shows, kids can watch them and enjoy them and have fun, and it's a big adventure. It's a big superhero story, but for adults watching it, it has a bit more meat to it. It's not just for kids. So that's what I feel like they have to do for G.I. Joe. It has to be something that's fun for kids, but you know, an adult has to be able to sit through that and watch it too. So, not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but I don't think that's impossible. I think it can happen. I think it can happen. And I think eventually, you know, it will happen. I hope that it happens with this movie, but um, I considering how much money G.I. Joe has made for Hasbro in the past, you know, even if it failed again, even if this next movie bombed and it turned out to not be what we hoped it would be, yeah, unless they're allergic to money, at some point in the future, they're going to try to make money with that franchise again in some way. We may have to wait a long time for it, but um, they'll keep trying. So, you know, I'm optimistic in that sense. But on the other hand, um, you know, um, I don't want to be the oldest at well, not JoeCon, but like Joe Fest now, I guess. I don't want to be the last generation of G.I. Joe fan, and I'd like to see the next generation of G.I. Joe fan in my lifetime. Um, you know, I don't want to be the one that shuts the lights out when the party's over. So, so that's why I really hope that this next movie does better. I hope it does well, and I hope that that kids like it. Yeah. So, GI Joe babies. It'd be like Muppet Babies, but more violence, more guns. Thanks, Lazarus. I'm glad that my reviews are generating some interest. I just, I hope that somehow we can translate that into something that will appeal to the next generation of fans. That's what when I'm looking at the GI Joe movie. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the next generation. Um, the old live action commercials. Gray Fox asks about the old live action commercials. Hey, there was a really cool panel at JoeCon about those live action commercials where Kirk Bozigian talked about the production and everything. They had lots of like behind the scenes footage. It was really interesting. Um, the live action commercials, obviously, I think were successful. They really seem to bring in kids, and kids seem to respond to them well. I think looking back at them, some of them can be a little bit hokey, but overall, you know, ignoring some of the hokier bits, um, they're amazingly well produced for, you know, a toy commercial. I mean, those could not have been cheap to make. Um, I mean, all the sets, like full-scale vehicles they had, and like aerial battles with the gliders. I mean, it's just impressive to see. And after seeing what went into creating those, it's even more impressive. It's pretty cool. And I think, who has it? 3D Joe's put on a panel, put on the panel about the commercials at JoeCon. Yeah, Carson from 3D Joe's. Yes. And hello, Joe Fan 82. Nice to see you. And Joe Fan 82 is correct, or at least I think he is, that 3D Joe's put the panel up on the YouTube channel. And he may have also done like a super clip of the live action spots. I could be wrong about that, but check Joe Fan 82. He's the one who put on the panel and interviewed Kirk Bozigian about the live action commercials. So that's absolutely something to check out. And while I'm at it, 3D Joe's is a really cool website. Carson from 3D Joe's seems like a really cool guy. He's produced some books that have the artwork, like virtually all of the artwork, like the painted artwork for the entire toy line. It's really beautifully reproduced in high quality books. Carson, there's somebody who's done a nice bit of work for the community, has really given back to the community. So I gotta appreciate Carson from 3D Joe's. Hello, Not Snarl. How you doing? And I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up with your with the live chat as much as I'd like to. So I'm trying to scroll back and see some of your comments, but they go too fast. So. Oh yeah, cards of the live action commercials. Yeah, that's right. They did have some cards, didn't they? I've seen those cards. At least I've seen some of those cards. Oh, David introduced his son to Joe. He loves them. Oh, good, and he likes the videos. Well, thanks, David. That's appreciated. Thank you very much, and I'm glad he likes it. I really do. Hey, Mike Murdoch, how you doing? What's my favorite sci-fi looking Joe / Cobra vehicle? Ooh, that's a good question. Hold on. Let me think for a second. Okay, on a Cobra vehicle, this is easy. It's an easy question to answer on a Cobra vehicle, okay? My favorite sci-fi looking Cobra vehicle is the HISS tank. The HISS tank don't look like anything like any regular tank, but it is really cool looking. I just love that design. It's elegant. Yeah, HISS tank, that's my favorite for a Cobra vehicle. Now for a Joe vehicle, this is going to be tougher to decide. Let's see, not the Shark. Shark wouldn't be my pick. I mean, technically the killer whale isn't exactly modeled after a real-world vehicle, but the killer whale is not science fiction, so that doesn't count. I can't pick my favorite because that doesn't count for the question. Oh man, why can't I think? The Skyhawk is nice. Why can't I answer this question? Let's see here. Man, I'm blanking. Hang on a second. Let's see. Alex says his would be the Skyhawk. The Skyhawk is pretty good. Skyhawk is pretty awesome. It's a small vehicle, though. And I don't know. I mean, one obvious answer might be the Defiant, the big space shuttle. But I don't know that that's necessarily my favorite. Rolling Thunder, that's a good option too. Not based on something real world, kind of sci-fi, but still has a bit of a military feel to it with the green, you know, so that's not a bad choice as well. Let's see, what was... let's see. Well, see, 1985 had vehicles that were mostly grounded in reality. 1986. See, and I like the Conquest X-32, but that's based on a real jet, so that's not very science fiction. I'm not going to pick the Havoc. Sorry for fans of the Havoc. I'm not going to pick the Havoc. Oh hey, Chris said the Phantom. That might be it. The Phantom X-19 stealth fighter. Of course, stealth fighters did actually exist in the real world, but they didn't look like that. That came from a concept drawing that ended up not looking anything like the real stealth fighter. So that for that reason, it is technically science fiction, but it's a really cool looking jet. I think tentatively I'm going to go with that. Tentatively, I'm going to go with the Phantom X-19 unless I think of something else. There you go. That simple question only took 5 or 6 minutes to answer because I can't think of things off the top of my head. Yeah. All right, guys. I've got like tons of clutter around me, and anytime I have Joes in the vicinity, I want to like pick them up and show them to you because I like handling them and I like playing with them and I like showing them off. But most of the stuff I have around me right now is not stuff that I can show you because it would spoil the next few videos. One thing I did get out though, speaking of his tanks, I did get out my SMS. I didn't get it out. I didn't put it away. It's on a shelf. This is a nice display piece. I keep it out, but I got it off my shelf. You know, there's that. Since we were talking about his tank looks not too bad in red too. You know, I've done a poll at least twice asking everyone if they would like me to provide previews of what the review is going to be each week, or if you just want to be surprised and see what pops up. And both times I've done that poll, everybody wanted to be surprised. Nobody wants me to tell them what's coming up. So yeah, so for that reason, all this really cool stuff that's around me right now, I can't show it to you because apparently you guys want to be surprised. So yeah, surprise, 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 surprise. That's what everybody chose. So fine. I'll see. I've got cool stuff. And this is the straight arm Cobra Soldier that came with my missile command center, and that's pretty good straight arm figure. It's in really surprisingly good condition, and even though I don't like intentionally army build, it's still nice to have an extra army builder. Colt asks what my first Joe was. My first Joe was Breaker in 1982. The straight arm Breaker was my first one. I can't recall exactly why I chose Breaker as my first one, but that was, I remember very clearly, that's the first one I got. One theory I have is that the first G.I. Joe commercial that I saw on TV was the one where Breaker, you know, kind of rappels down and rides on the Ram motorcycle. So that kind of blew my mind. And so Breaker, I think at the time, kind of seemed to me like he was the main G.I. Joe, like maybe he was the leader of G.I. Joe. So I had to get that one first because he was the one I first saw in the commercial. So that may have been why I did it. But at any rate, I do know that my first was Breaker back in 1982, back when the line was relaunched. Oh, hey, David, his Breaker was his first Joe as well. Cool. Maybe Breaker isn't the most exciting figure to be the first one. I mean, he doesn't come with any guns or anything like that. He doesn't come with a vehicle. But, I mean, at the time, it just seemed cool. They all seemed really cool. And so, yeah, I was really happy with it. I was happy with that figure. And, of course, I got more as quickly as I could. Robert says Zartan is the best figure. Zartan's a really good figure. I can't argue with him being a really good figure. Yeah, I really like Zartan, even though Zartan is an unabashed science fiction element in G.I. Joe. Zartan is pretty much all science fiction. I mean, the writing for that character in the comic book was so strong, and the design of the character is really good, that I still, even though maybe I shouldn't like Zartan, I still end up really liking Zartan. Javier Gonzalez Killer Whale was first vehicle, $34.99 back in 1986. Well, you can't even get one of those steering vanes for $34.95 anymore. Colt says the only 82 figures he had was Short Fuse and Stalker. Cousin gave him Stalker, and Cousin gave his Short Fuse and found Stalker at a yard sale. Well, I always thought Stalker was a really special figure back then because of the camouflage. He was just a really cool looking figure. I mean, G.I. Joe was great that first year compared to everything else that was out on the market. But in 1983, when they gave us the swivel arm battle grip, and then they gave us like a Marine, and they gave us Airborne and these characters that had more detail on them. I was all about that. It was that, if I wasn't already a fan of G.I. Joe, I would have been, a really solid fan at that point. Because I loved the posability of those figures. I loved the detail of the figures. I loved the accessories. And, I collected Star Wars figures first, before G.I. Joe came out. And I still like the old Kenner Star Wars. There's still some merit to the Kenner Star Wars. But as a kid at the time, I got a G.I. Joe figure, and he had more accessories, better accessories. He could move around more. And, a military theme was something that just really struck me as really cool at the time. So, yeah, G.I. Joe drew me away from Transformers. Wish Zap hadn't been so brittle. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of collectors wish Zap wouldn't be so brittle. There are some collectors who have managed to get their hands on an intact Zap figure, and it still breaks, because even if you get one and it's intact, you still have to handle it with care. That one's a little bit, the fragility of that thing is a little ridiculous. Colt asks if I liked the cartoon. I really liked the initial miniseries, the 5-part miniseries, the one with the mass device. I was really enamored with that. It was really thrilling to see my favorite characters on the screen, with voices and all of that. As the series went on, I tended to not like it quite as much. I was reading the comic book by then, so, I was always hoping it would be a little more like the comic book, which is kind of unfair to the series. I should have given it more of a chance, and I should have let the series be what it is rather than just want everything to be what I expected. I was very critical as a child. I really wanted things my way when I was a kid. I was very immature, but yeah, the animated series has grown on me more as an adult than as a kid. But I did watch it. I didn't see every episode, but I'd watch it from time to time. But I would always get the comic books. The comic books, I was an avid reader. Bear, my best friend, backyard had a Joe cemetery. All right, Byron's best friend's backyard had a Joe cemetery. That's cute. All right, that's kind of funny. I may have done something like that myself. I think I may have buried a few Joes, but I would always dig them up at the end of the day because you know, those are my toys, and I still wanted to play with them. So they'd be resurrected, you know, and we'd have a whole new storyline. Alex said he always wanted figures for the cartoons green shirts. I think there was an O-ring set that had some green shirt figures. I think it was not in the vintage era. It was later. But I think there was a set of those green shirt figures released. I have no idea if it's hard to find or not, but if that's something that you'd still be interested in, I think that is out there. You had a funeral for them. That's it. That's cool. That's cool. Now, speaking of the green shirts figures, when Steel Brigade came out, and Steel Brigade was, you know, a fan insertion kind of character, but when I saw that the figures were all generic, were all the same, my thought was, they were kind of like the green shirts. They were Joes, but they all wore the same uniform. So my thought was like, Steel Brigade is like the green shirts, right? But they're not green shirts. They have like a cooler uniform with a neat helmet and stuff like that. But they're not, you know, they're not named characters. But I always imagined that, you know, if a Steel Brigade worked really hard and studied really hard and ate his vegetables every day, that he might get selected and become a Joe. And so I like to imagine some Joes, as they, you know, joined the team, started out as Steel Brigade and then were eventually selected to be part of the regular G.I. Joe team. That's just kind of my head canon, but that's just what I imagined for the Steel Brigade. Lazarus says Steel Brigade was like the Viper version of the Green Street. That's kind of, yeah, something like that. Something like that. That's how I would imagine it. Did I see the original Zorana art? It just came across it the other day on 3D Joe's. If I remember right, the original art for Zorana was a little racier than the artwork that they finally went with. If that's the one I'm thinking of. I may not be thinking of the same one that you saw, but I seem to remember some artwork for Zorana that has some differences from the production artwork. And there's stuff like maybe it didn't have the upper arm shields, something like that. There was something about it that there was more skin showing, is my recollection. But modesty prevailed, and so they covered that up. You can't have any bare shoulders. There are children watching. And yeah, I'm still trying to keep up with you guys in the live chat. Anyway. Oh, Matt says, Brian, do you remember the Joe toys that featured in The Boy Who Could Fly, 80s film with Fred Savage? Yes, I do. Yes, I do remember that. And that's like the only reason that I watched that movie so many times, is just because there were Joes in it. So yes, I do remember that. I don't know that any other part of the movie appealed to me, but the kid had Joes, so I could relate to them, relate to him. So yeah, yes, I remember that. Speaking of Joe movie references, I just been trying to catch up on the new MST3K series that's on Netflix, and one of the movies they watch is Mac and Me. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Mac and Me. It stinks. It's a terrible movie. It's one of the worst movies. It's dumb. It got some shameless product placement. It's a shameless ripoff of E.T. in many ways. But I love Mac and Me. It's hilarious. But in that movie, I think there were at least 2 Joe references. So watch Mac and Me and see if you can spot the G.I. Joe. Excuse me, I sneezed. Oh, hey, we're closing in on an hour. Guys, I do try to keep these live streams to about an hour because I'm tired and it's been a long day. But it's a lot of fun talking to you guys every Tuesday evening. I do have an announcement to make, though. Next Tuesday, I do have a family thing that I've got to do. So I'm not sure exactly how that will affect the live stream. It will either be late or I'll just have to skip it that day. So, but hopefully I can still join you, and I'll let you know what happens. But I do know that at the regular time when would normally have the live stream, I've got to be at a family event, and so I won't be here. I'll keep you posted on that. So yeah. But anyway, thank you everyone. Thanks everyone for showing up. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate it. I will see you guys soon. See you with a full vintage G.I. Joe toy review very soon. And also lots of other fun stuff before the end of the year. So thanks everyone for watching. Good night all. And I will press this little thing which will turn this off.